Hey, welcome to Northpointe Plus. This is episode 68, right after Christmas. We're all dressed the way we dress normally after Christmas when we're done wearing Christmas stuff. So that's how, I don't know, I just made that part up. So hey, welcome to the podcast.
We're not wearing new Christmas shirts.
Yeah, well, it was a tough year on everyone. So none of us have got the same old clothes. Yeah, I mean that's what I meant. We simplified. So hey, glad you're watching. Whatever this week looks like for you, kind of that in between Christmas and New Year. We were kind of just talking off camera that it's kind of an odd week for some people, maybe a lot of people. It's sort of a down week, but for folks in retail, holy cow, it's a crank week, you know. Yeah. And then maybe lots of people using it to reset or organize, kind of get cleaned up a little after all the Christmas stuff. So whatever this week looks like for you, thanks for tuning in and spending a few minutes with us. We're going to start with actually a question from our last podcast that Jake apparently refused to answer, and so we want to tackle that, though. He did commit to getting it answered.
Yeah,
so.
I said we get it done, and so I didn't know the answer, to be honest with you. So we brought Rick in because Rick knows everything.
I always say use your resources, man. You don't have to know everything. You just have to know who does.
Dodgeball. Here we go. Rick, so this was a question that came in that since you are the knower of all things, especially missions and missionary related, it says, hey, are we still partnering with Compassion International? Rick, that's you. Just in case. Mentioned something about a mission trip with Mohi in a couple years. Will there be another chance to go on a mission trip with Compassion to see our sponsored children? So I don't know who submitted it. It was unknown, and I don't know the answer because hopefully you do.
Great question.
Yeah.
The short. Well, goodness, I'm trying to think how in-depth the answer is. When we started the partnership...
Not super in-depth. We'll keep it easy for this.
When we started the partnership with Compassion and planted the church in Ecuador and began to sponsor kids there, our hope was that we would have a long-term relationship that we could just keep going back year after year and go there. Some stuff happened. Well, there are two things that have impacted our ability to go back to Ecuador. One is COVID.
What's that?
It's a 2022 thing.
Oh, okay.
Or
Cool.
Is it like a TikTok challenge or something?
Yes.
Or was it like a...
The Compassion in their concern for people that would travel and go to their sites has actually not opened up travel for official Compassion trips back to Ecuador since COVID happened. And so while we could still go and do our trip, we couldn't do it in partnership with Compassion. We would have to handle all of the logistics, get there, and I wouldn't feel good about that because they're the experts on the ground.
Sure.
They think that will open up sometime in 23, but that's still iffy. Then the second part of that is that some stuff happened with some of the leadership of the churches in Ecuador that Compassion helped partner with Stadia to create. Ours is one of them. That some of the accountability that that Compassion asked for, they weren't doing, and so Compassion actually stopped their relationship with the leadership of those churches. Our kids that we sponsor there are still in a Compassion program. It's just through a different leadership. And so our ability to connect with the church that we helped plant has been difficult. It's and that's been a path that we've pursued actually now for a little over a year to try and work it out so that we could get back there. We haven't been able to do that. We probably will still go back to Ecuador at some point in time, but we'll wait until Compassion is running trips. And that way people can still go and visit their kids. We still write to our kids, still pray for our kids, are still helping provide for them. The partnership with Mohi, with Missions of Hope International in Kenya, and let me just pause for a second and say, as you're watching this, if you haven't had an opportunity to give to the Christmas offering, that can allow us to help plant churches there, or plant a church there, plant a school there, there's still time to do that. You can give through the end of the year, get it on this tax year if you want to do that. You can do that even up through January 1st, even a little bit after that, and we'll see what happens in terms of reaching our goal and seeing how God works in that. But our partnership with with Missions of Hope International is very similar to what we've talked about with compassion. We want to create a relationship where we're investing in one particular place. We sponsor children there, and we can go and visit there. And there's a big difference philosophically in compassion and Mohi, in that Mohi really wants people to come and visit, because in the poor places that Mohi works, it makes a huge difference to the families and the children in terms of their sense of self-worth, that they're in a remote part of the world, and for them to have international guests come to their home is a really big deal. It says we matter. And so they would love for us to come. And man, Kenya is a beautiful country. Yeah. And just lots to see and do there. People there are great. And so we hope to be able to do that in the future. Not promising anything, but I had a conversation recently that Wallace and Mary Kamau, who are the leaders of Missions of Hope International, there's a chance that they're going to be able to be at Northpointe this spring and talk about their work and what's going on, how God's using them, and that would be a really cool thing if that happens. So does that answer the question?
Answers
question.
Jake's question.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you're listening and that was your question and it didn't, you have feel free to email Rick rrubel@northpointecc.org. And or info at Northpointe. You just want info at Northpointecc.org, and it'll get to the right place so we can dialogue more with you specifically about whatever question might be in that.
So, and if you sponsor a kid with compassion, we don't have to do an official Northpointe trip.
Right.
You can actually
Anytime.
contact Compassion, and they'll try and set up a trip if you want to go to Ecuador or to Zimbabwe or to Iceland, wherever it is.
We've had a handful of folks from Northpointe who do that kind of, I would say regularly, every few years. But
right.
Very cool.
Yeah, I've seen our kids in Kenya in 2015 and 2018. And it's a big deal. One of the last letters I got, one of the kids said, "When are you coming to visit?"
Yeah.
So
guess we're planning a trip.
Love to go back.
Good stuff. Well, we'll transition our thinking back to Christmas stuff. We just celebrated, we had our Christmas Eve services, Christmas Day service, wonderful. So I guess maybe we'll just start here and just ask you guys, do you have Christmas traditions, things that your family do or whatever that are kind of meaningful to you specifically? Specifically meaningful to you guys. You got Christmas traditions?
I've been talking. You go ahead.
Yeah, so I know there's just small things. I think they're really family-oriented for us. My mother-in-law loves to bake, and she is fantastic.
Shout out to Patty Bakes if you're interested in having any kind of sweets.
Yeah, fantastic.
Patty Bakes.
Yeah, it's so good. And so she'll have the kids over, and they all get to decorate and do something like that. And it's just fun to watch as the kids grow up, how their decorating skills change and morph a little bit. But the cool moment of that is really it's grandma and grandpa with the kids and making a mess and just laughing and having those kind of memories. So I think all of that is really cool. This Christmas, I got to celebrate with family in Cincinnati, which is huge. You don't always get to do that for Christmas Day or traveling and stuff like that at times. And so kind of getting to experience everything there for my girls was a really special thing.
Yeah, very cool.
It's just the family aspect of everything that really sticks out to me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Rick, anything?
We have a whole host of traditions. We actually did a Rubel tradition with our life group in the last time that we met, which is typically what we would do as a family on Christmas Eve. We'd go out to eat, come back to the house, go Christmas caroling in Norman Rockwell kind of style through the neighborhood, go visit the neighbors and do that, and then come back to the house, get everybody kind of wound down, and then would sit in the living room and sing Christmas carols. So we'd sing all of the fun Christmas carols, all of the secular Santa, all that stuff, and then kind of shift and sing the carols about the birth of Jesus. Have that finish with my mom would bring out a birthday cake for Jesus that had a candle for every person who was there, and my dad would read the Christmas story from Luke 2. Mom would take the cake around, and everyone would light a candle, light their candle, and give a gift to Jesus as they lit the candle. Would then finish by singing Silent Night, and then sing Happy Birthday to Jesus, which is that's a big family tradition kind of thing, and then have ice cream and cake and do that before we then did all of the putting the stockings up and all that kind of thing. So we did it with our life group, just the birthday party for Jesus, reading Luke 2. And in the podcast a few weeks ago, I had mentioned that when I was in first grade, I memorized Luke 2. The teacher gave extra credit for us memorizing Luke 2. And I memorized it in King James. And so I said I still have trouble reading it in New International or whatever, because the King James just kind of comes out. And when our life group was at the house a couple weeks ago, I read from Luke 2, and I read it in the King James.
Oh yeah, sure.
And it's as funny. It was very emotional for me. Not just the story of Jesus, but doing it in King James was, Hebrews talks about being surrounded by the great cloud of witnesses, and just thinking about all the Christmases that we did that with mom and dad, my grandparents, my cousins, everybody all packed in a really small place. And it was a really, really cool time together as a life group. And that's a part of our tradition that really has gotten lost because I never started doing Christmas Eve services until about 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. Up until that time, we never did a church Christmas Eve service. We just did our tradition stuff. And now, we do 3 Christmas Eve services. Yeah. So it's like I come home and I'm not sure I want to do the birthday party for Jesus right now.
I hear you. Yeah.
So not that I don't want to celebrate Jesus' birthday, but
no.
Different.
We recorded that, right? That's
different.
Oh, but it is different. It's different for staff, for church staff.
Yeah. So that's for me. That's a big deal for the since all our kids had moved away. It's funny because this week in between Christmas and New Year's has been different for me in that we're not at home where we're just kind of low key. We're someplace else, seeing all the kids, and it's just a wonderful time with them. But when we come home, it's like, okay, I'm ready to rest from all of the travel and all that kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah, I resonate as our kids. I wonder how much of our traditions we create are kind of for kids, because as ours have grown and gone, our traditions have just kind of morphed some. So just the bookend from the Norman Rockwell kind of feeling emotional. Well, the last 3 years we've done different ethnic Christmases because long story, we just got tired of ham, I think. But so 3 years ago we did Mexican Christmas. Last Christmas was Mediterranean Christmas, and this year was Asian Christmas. So we it's theme food, and it's pretty bizarre, right? I mean, I never heard of that before, so I feel like I'm on the cutting edge of something here. But
so where are you going next year?
No, we could do it at home. Oh, I don't know. We don't ever think of it till a couple weeks before. So
Kenyan, you could do Kenyan food.
Maybe so. So so this year was Asian Christmas. If you want stories of what actually happened, you got to take me out for coffee, because we're not going to podcast that, because I'm sure I'm going to get a call from someone. So
vegan Christmas next year.
Vegan. Jesus, take me home. To all our vegans out there, God bless you. Eat some protein. Okay, so
hey, I did have one more, if you don't mind.
Yeah, please.
Tradition that we started just this year, and I think we'll continue on. And we did this at church a few years ago. It was Sparkle Box.
Oh yeah,
yeah. You were just talking, reminding me when you said traditions for kids, because my daughter has been so excited about Sparkle Box. Like everything that we do, like she's just, that goes in the Sparkle Box. That was a gift for Jesus. So we walked into.
Hey, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. Some people weren't here for Sparkle Box. You say Sparkle Box like everybody on the planet knows what a Sparkle Box is.
No, you're right.
I'd like you to. Sparkle Box is a special box that Jake has. That I'm just totally kidding.
Box.
Talk about Sparkle Box just real brief.
Yeah, so Sparkle Box is a book that we actually gave out. Was it a local author or
no?
No, okay.
Yeah,
but it came our way.
An author from Ohio.
Oh, even better. And it just tells this story, and the whole point of this, and it comes with a little tiny box that you unfold at the beginning of December, and then you take the whole month and you do acts of kindness for other people. And then you write those down and you put them in the box, and then on Christmas Day you open it up, and that's your gift to Jesus is kind of the idea. And my daughter has been so excited about that, and so every little thing she's done that's been kind, she wants to write down and put in the box, even things that you're like, I'm not quite so sure. Like she rejected a guy at Home Depot who tried to like give her a toy or something, and she's like, Mommy, I said no thank you. So that goes in the sparkle box. You know,
celebrate that. It could have been worse.
Yeah. So that's just been a really fun thing to watch that. Like,
I didn't beat my sister today.
Right.
Awesome. I had it down. Good.
So there's another tradition.
Good. I love it. So we just kind of, as we're entering into the conversation about tradition, we just finished a whole series on kind of that idea of just the right time. Jesus came at just the right time, which may have not felt like the right time if we would have lived back in that day, right? We talked about that because of the politics and the culture and just all the stuff that was going on. But it was just the right time. God had planned and prepared for that moment. So these traditions that we kind of talk about, or even as we're thinking of other family traditions, do any of them connect to that concept in your mind of time, just the right time, Jesus coming at right? I mean, I don't know. Do any of those things connect in your head at all? And a follow-up question that we could also answer is, from the series, have we heard of anybody who started traditions that kind of connect to that concept of time, just the right time? So whether it's your own family tradition or traditions you're hearing about from other people just starting up. Anything?
I don't have any tradition kind of answers to that, but it's been fun to me to see the connection from experiencing God into at just the right time. That there is this sense that God's working all around us, and that God puts pieces together at just the right time. And Jesus came at just the right time, even though it didn't feel like the right time. Probably for anybody. And so God's hand in that process is just a really cool testament to who he is, to his character, his nature, his love for us. And so, again, no real tradition, but I think that there is a sense as you come to the end of the year, the end of this week, as we head into this weekend with the end of 2022, that when you reflect and look backwards, you can see, oh, God was doing this at this point in time, this at this point in time, and brought it together in this way. And sometimes it makes sense of difficult stuff. Sometimes we don't see it yet, but you can see kind of the thread through there. It's language that we've used before, that we've talked about in terms of God working upstream, so that at just the right time he brings those pieces together to arrive, to save, to whatever.
Yeah, we had growing up, one of our traditions was we basically went all over the city looking at all the different Christmas stuff. So there would be, Fountain Square, which is like in the middle of Cincinnati. There's this giant statue, and they would do an ice rink, and you'd have an ice cream parlor that we love to go to, and the big tree for the city at Graders, like all of these kinds of things. And then we went to a place called Union Terminal. It's an old train station. It's this massive building, and they have actually 2 museums in a part of it. And they have this huge train display that you can go and do. And I loved as a little kid because you got free cookies.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So that was like always the big thing for me. But then we would go up to, I think it was on Mount Adams, but whatever it was the conservatory. And so you'd walk in, and there's all these beautiful flowers everywhere, and they'd have all these different displays. But right outside, they always did the live nativity. And all of this, like, just culminated in this very special family day that we would do. And I just remember we did it every Christmas Eve for year after year after year. So that concept of just the right time, like we did all of these things in the same pattern again and again and again. And it just created this incredible experience that my parents were very intentional about planning and preparing and making and all of us. So we did the same stuff again every year, but we began to look forward to it, and each one had its own unique taste or flavor or something like that would come to be a part of it. But just an interesting thing, as we talk about preparation or planning or those kinds of things, that like, hey, God orchestrated with the birth of Jesus and the original Christmas, all of these events throughout the history of mankind to culminate in this one thing. And it just kind of reminded me of my parents culminating that day of all these different events, planning it out perfectly to make like this one memory for all of us to have. It's just kind of a cool thing.
That is very cool. It's been fascinating. I don't know how this connects either, but Emily and I, my wife and I, we separately read a book at Christmas, or a couple different books that we just talk about it. We can't read the same book because we have way different tastes, because hers involves strapping men on the front. I'm just kidding. No, it's not the romance stuff, but hopefully she listens to that, because I'm going to catch all kinds of flack for that little comment. Goodness. Maybe Chuck T will help cut that
Emily
out.
Harlequin.
Yeah, something. But the book that I was reading some book, and it was a tangential part. It wasn't even part of it, but it got me captured on Luke 1 and the genealogy of Jesus, which I've never really paid much attention to. It's a bunch of names that I don't care about. I mean, I just kind of read. But what I'm fascinated by, and I've just been spending time in it in the last couple of weeks, is that there were so many moments in that genealogy where it was wrong. Wrong people, wrong scenarios, wrong situations. You just got to read these characters and figure it out, because there's a gal that she was a prostitute. That's how she got into that mix. But yet Jesus's line comes through that. There was an essence of rape that happens, and Jesus's line comes through that. And Matthew is intentional about putting it in there to remind us about all these moments where the promise was in jeopardy. This promise of a Messiah was in jeopardy. And if I'd have been a character, any one of those characters, I'd be like, oh, we're doomed. Oh, we're doomed. Oh, we're doomed. And there's 14s in there, 14 generations from, 14 generations from. It's like 42 different generations. That's hundreds and hundreds of years. And that idea of just the right time, but so many times it seemed like it was wrong and in jeopardy, and somehow God lost control of the throttle, but he didn't. And so I'm just reminded that as we think today, because sometimes you hear people say, oh, what a messed up place we live in, what a messed up culture, what a messed up world. We've kind of talked about this over the last few weeks, but and yet God, it's not messed up. I mean, it's messed up, but not for God. Like, he's like, I got this. I'm still in control. I still got a plan. There's still a timing. And so, I don't know, there's something been really rich just about living in that concept over the last few weeks. So,
yeah, I was, to expand on that at some level, this past week's message, the right response, as you were talking, Jake, about all of the family tradition stuff and the stuff that I share, it's easy for us, if we have a family that is, let's just say, less dysfunctional than some. It's easy to have this picture of Christmas that everything's good, and it is, and for us to miss and to forget the number of families that Christmas is a mess because dad's gone, or somebody's drinking, or somebody's angry, and it's like, just get us everybody back to work and a normal routine. And where I want to go is that whole concept of the right response that Anna and Simeon had. Even now, a few days after Christmas, if your Christmas has been horrible, you can still have the right response. You can still love in spite of pain. You can choose to reach out to people who have hurt you. You can choose to pray, to just pray that God would work through those situations. And that can make even the extension of Christmas even more special at just the right time. Sometimes we think when everything goes wrong, this is just the wrong time. And yet God can use it to be just the right time for redemption, for a new story, for a fresh start, for all kinds of stuff.
Because he did so many times. Why would this be any different? That's great.
When you were talking the genealogies, I thought, I wonder how many people, because there had to be Jewish people that said, it's coming from the line of David. Whose line? Which
track?
Oh, it can't be those guys. It can't be that one because of Ruth. It can't be that line because of this or that. And yet that's who God chose.
And Matthew's so intentional about including it. Like, I would have left it out. There's other people you could put in, but it's good stuff. Well, maybe parting shot kind of as we finish up, what's one thing you'd want to say to people in this kind of in-between time, this between Christmas, between New Year, whatever that looks like for you, whether it's kind of let down or if it's crank up because of where you work, how you live, I don't know. What's one thing we'd leave people with? Anything?
I'd just say go for the wonder. There's less pressure, hopefully right now. So even if you're traveling, if you're in Joplin watching this, whatever, go for the wonder. We're recording this ahead of time, but I'm jazzed about the chance to celebrate Christmas with a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 6-year-old. Because that's having them in our home.
Yeah.
That's just going to make it fun. And to, the wonder of snow, the wonder of staying up late, the wonder of waking up with grandma and grandpa, just enjoy the wonder and know that God is the God of wonder.
Yeah, that's good. I'd probably say something similar. I'd say like sometime this week, put your feet up, take a breath, and sort of just enjoy this moment, especially if this is a week that is a little more down for you. This time of year, people struggle with depression, and that's just a reality, partly because we haven't seen the sun in a month and a half, but partly because of just the season. So, but I'd say just take a breath and lean into enjoying what's in front of you. So if you can do that,
Treasure
Jake, anything?
Yeah, I was gonna kind of say something similar to you. So thanks for stealing my thunder.
You can't take my answer. Come on, man.
Stuff, Chris. Rest was all I was gonna say.
Oh yeah.
It's probably been a pretty crazy holiday season because it always is.
Yeah.
For everybody, trying to get things together, the events, all the whatever, all the do. So, just taking some time to breathe, some rest, let your body come back, bounce back a little bit, let your mind, especially your spirit, and just kind of soak that in. That's the beautiful thing. I actually was talking with somebody who talked about like the nature of winter, the season of hibernation. Like we have the 4 seasons or all this or that, and like at times we feel bad that we're not as out and about and doing as much in the winter. But it's like, no, what if that's like part of God's creation? Is this idea of just not being as busy,
like it was
just
intended to be that way or
yeah,
something?
right? Kind of thing.
Crazy.
So.
Funny story. Maybe it's not that funny. I find
Just
it very,
lowered the bar right there.
No. I just find this very interesting about that. So when we were in Alaska a few years ago, we got picked up when we were in Anchorage by a friend of mine's young adult daughter. So we were talking to her, first time I had ever met her, and she said, so they're in Anchorage. During the winter, they have periods of 18, 20, 22 hours of darkness. And she said, it's really interesting because during that time, she said, you have to sleep 10 or 12 hours. She said, it doesn't matter what time you set the alarm clock, you just have to sleep more.
That sounds glorious, by the way.
And
do we sign up for that?
Yeah.
She said the flip of that is also really interesting. She said during summer, when there's 20 hours of whatever of sunlight, she said, I can't explain it, but I can go on 3 or 4 hours of sleep for weeks on end because the sun's always up. It is that whole sense of hibernation is just really interesting in terms of how God wires our bodies. So I said it was really, really funny, not funny, just interesting.
Interesting.
So
let's all go in the cave and hibernate.
We go around the room with what I learned. Yeah. I learned we are supposed to hibernate.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Will you tell my kids?
I will let them know. I'll send them. I will let them know on MySpace. So. Hey, thanks for being with us, guys. We appreciate you tuning in. And like always, this is social media. You can help us out by hitting that like button or sharing or commenting. All those things help this go a little bit further, and it lets us engage with you, which is a cool thing. And so we'd love you to do that. So Merry post-Christmas and looking forward to New Year. And hopefully we'll see you on Sunday.
And go Buckeyes.